The Discovery, Chapter 17, Part 3. David picked up on the hint and leaned forward in kind. He paused just a few short inches away from Midnight's muzzle, and a thin smile found its way onto his lips. After a moment, they closed the distance and gently kissed each other. It was electrifying. Quick, but full of love and passion. Regrettably, David and Midnight pulled away from each other, lest they cause a scene.
Give it another few months and we'll be able to do that without turning heads,
Midnight said.
Yeah, here's hoping,
David replied.
So, how have things been going with your work? I know you were really excited to get an actual job last month.
Midnight inquired.
Well, things have been a little hectic. Between trying to remember what I know about electrical engineering from college and sharing human tech with the engineers at Canterlot College, I haven't had as much free time as I've gotten used to. Not to mention, my damn memory is so bad these days, I have to write down half of our conversations to make sure I don't forget what we talked about last week,
David explained with a sigh.
How's about we take you to a neurologist sometime next week and get it checked out just to be sure?
At David's somewhat sad nod, she continued.
That said, busy is usually good. That means you're doing good work,
she said with a supportive smile.
I try. Oh, by the way, I had a talk with that snob Black Rose. He should get off your back about all that new armor the Night Guard has been harassing you for. Really? Oh my gosh, thank you! I've been trying to get him to shut up about it ever since I went back to work. How'd you do it?
Midnight asked with wide eyes.
I told him we had some designs incorporating titanium and magical enchantments to save weight and make stronger armor. He didn't believe me at first, but once I showed him the strength to weight ratio of titanium, he practically begged me to start making armor. Dude wants 5,000 units by the end of the year,
David replied with a non-committal shrug.
You have no idea how long that guy's been hounding me for better armor. I've had to tell him 5 separate times that it's not my job to design the armor. I just get the bits to buy it. If you finally got him off my tail, just... thanks, David.
Midnight replied with a genuine smile.
Figured it was about time I did something nice for you. I'm done with my good deeds for another 6 months, right?
David asked with a grin. Midnight and David shared a laugh before Golden Ray arrived with their drinks. Here you go, a strawberry daiquiri for the lovely lady, Golden Ray said, setting Midnight's drink down in front of her. And a lava flow for the lucky stallion. Golden Ray effortlessly deposited their water on the table and quickly made off to another table. David looked at his drink with wonder. The red and white liquids in the glass didn't mix, giving it the appearance of a lava lamp. One blob of white slowly rose to the surface, only to sink back down to the bottom a few seconds later. Okay, I don't even care if this drink is a girly drink. That's badass, David said with a prideful smile. Who said it was girly? Midnight asked with a raised eyebrow. Well, it's a pina colada. It said so on the menu. David, no pony said a pina colada was a girly drink, Midnight said with a face-huff. Well, back home it was. Darn it, Mid, let me have this, David said with a fake pout. Oh, all right, I'll let you win. For once. Even if you're being petty again, Midnight said with a grin. I am not petty. I'm being perfectly reasonable, David said, crossing his arms and turning his nose up at Midnight. Midnight had to stifle her giggles before they became too obnoxious for the pony seated nearby. Fine, you win. You're being perfectly reasonable, Midnight admitted with a shrug. Damn right, David said, as he grabbed his drink and took an experimental sip. Rich, creamy coconut flavor exploded in his mouth, followed by a syrupy strawberry flavor. David couldn't help but let out a happy little hum, as the liquid brought a slight tingly feeling to his taste buds. He set the drink on the table and smacked his lips. I don't know if it's just magic in the booze or if you ponies are just that good at making drinks, but I can't taste the alcohol in this at all, and now my tongue kind of feels tingly and it's amazing, David said with a happy smile. I think the drink you got has a little bit of magic in it. At least that's why it gives that little tingly feeling, Midnight explained, after putting her own drink down. So, no hangover? David asked with wide eyes. Nope, you should be good, Midnight replied with a wink. David grabbed his drink and took a much larger gulp of the strawberry/coconut-flavored liquid. He set the drink back down on the table and smiled.
That's one of my favorite things about Equestria, no hangovers.
It sure is nice. Although, it costs a lot more to enchant the drinks. Try not to buy too many. I can afford an expensive dinner once in a while, but I'd rather not end up washing dishes to pay for drinks.
Midnight said with a grin.
Mid, I'm paying half tonight. It's not fair that I get to live with you for free and not chip in once in a while.
David replied, his arms crossed. Midnight took on a stern yet slightly playful tone while she looked at David straight in the eye.
I seem to remember telling you that since you're my boyfriend and I love you, that you don't owe me anything for living with me.
She turned away for only a moment, while her lips curled into the slightest of smiles before she reconnected eye contact and said,
I love you and you love me, and that's all that matters.
She looked down to her glass and picked up her own drink.
Besides,
She said, before she took her own sip while she looked back at David.
It's normal for a mare to spoil her stallion once in a while.
She put her glass down, her eyes never breaking from David's.
Just as long as you pay me back later.
Midnight seductively trailed off.
Well, when you put it that way...
David shrugged his shoulders and allowed a grin to form on his face.
Seriously though, let me pay for part of this, please. I'll feel really bad if you pay for it all... again.
David finished.
All right, you can chip in. Only because I love you, though.
Thanks. I love you too.
David reached over the table and placed his hand on Midnight's hoof. They shared a tender moment before quickly reaching over the table and kissing. With great hesitation, they pulled away to see the waiter arriving with their entrees on a tray balanced neatly on his back. Golden Ray arrived at the table with a wide smile before expertly unloading Midnight and David's orders with practiced ease. 1 fettuccine alfredo for the mare, and 1 11-ounce sirloin with a vegetable side for the stallion. Golden Ray announced with a proud smile.
Thank you.
Midnight said.
Thanks.
David said with a smile. Golden Ray rebalanced the tray on his back and headed off, leaving Midnight and David to their meals. Midnight took a fork in her magic and began eating her salad, while David took his fork and stabbed at some of his vegetables. After a few minutes, Midnight looked up at David to see that his vegetables were all gone, and he was looking around as if he had done something wrong.
David, it's all right. You can eat your steak. No pony's gonna get upset.
Midnight said, placing a comforting hoof on David's hand. Her fetlock gently stroked his hand, slowly calming him. The warmth and softness of her hoof soothed his nerves and helped David refocus his attention on her eyes.
Okay, you're right. I'm just being paranoid.
David admitted, bringing his other hands to Midnight's hoof and gently holding on. After a few seconds, they broke the contact and David brought his utensils to the steak. He cut himself a piece and slowly brought it to his mouth. After one last moment of hesitation, he took a bite and closed his eyes as the flavor washed over his tongue. David practically moaned as the flavor sunk in and the juicy steak practically melted in his mouth. Midnight watched the whole while, a genuine smile forming on her face as David's reaction progressed from fear to euphoria, and then to satisfaction as he practically feasted on the piece of steak. Finally, David opened his eyes to find Midnight smiling brightly back at him. The rest of the restaurant seemed to have completely ignored him.
See? No pony is judging you, no pony is afraid of you, and no pony is going to run you out of town. You were getting all worked up over nothing.
Midnight said with a comforting smile.
Thanks, Mid. As always, you were right.
David replied with a grateful smile. They continued to eat in a happy silence. David and Midnight managed to pull themselves away from their meals for a few moments at a time to share a loving glance or two. But for the most part, they were completely enamored with their meals. They were expensive after all. David took his napkin and wiped his mouth clean of any meat particles or juices that he might have missed and set the now dirty napkin down on the table. His eyes fell on a satisfied Midnight, beaming a happy smile back at him. Golden Ray returned with a knowing smile. Without a word, he removed their used dishes and left to get their check, leaving David and Midnight alone for a short while.
So, what'd you think, big guy? Pretty good, right?
Midnight enthusiastically asked.
Yeah, it was really good.
David replied.
So, what are you getting me for dessert?
Midnight asked with a suggestive wiggle of her eyebrows.
Oh, just you wait, that's a surprise.
David replied with a smug grin.
Can I guess?
Nope, it's a surprise.
Aww. I mean, is it what you got me for our first, second, and third month anniversaries?
Midnight asked with a hopeful look in her eyes.
Was it that obvious?
David replied with a fake pout. Midnight giggled while David lightly chuckled at his attempts to play coy. In that moment, Golden Ray returned with the bill. Here you are. Thank you both for coming. It's been a pleasure to have served you tonight, Golden Ray said, before trotting off to another table.
Alright, let's see.
Oh, it's not that bad. Only 123 pets. I thought it was going to be worse.
Midnight said, clearly relieved.
That's a lot of money. Here, I'll take half.
David said, pulling a small pouch out of his pocket.
David, I got this. Relax. Besides, you can pay me back when we get back to the house.
Midnight said dismissively.
Mid,
Please.
Midnight asked, already making puppy dog eyes at David.
stop.
David said, although he already felt his will crumbling. Midnight continued her attack on David's willpower.
Mid, fine, you can pay.
Midnight only smiled brightly before pulling out a large pouch of bits and placing them on the table. She easily spotted Golden Ray from afar and waved him over. Within a few moments, he was at the table and counting the bits. 121, 122, 123, all here. Thank you so much for coming, and have a wonderful night.
Here,
David said, tossing another small pouch of bits to Golden Ray.
as a tip.
Thank you so much, sir. You both have a wonderful evening, Golden Ray replied before heading off. David felt Midnight's unhappy glare on him before he even looked at her.
What? You didn't say anything about me getting the tip?
David said with a shrug. Midnight moved to speak, but then thought better of it. After a moment, she found her words.
You know what? That's fair. Alright, David. You win this round.
Midnight said, admitting defeat.
Yes, let me just chalk that up on my win streak. 1 for David and 0 for Midnight.
David said, going through the motion of adding a tally mark in the air with his finger.
Fine, you win. Come on, big guy, let's get out of here.
Midnight said, hopping off of her chair. David moved to get off of his chair, but stopped fully before rising to his feet. The whole room seemed to be spinning, and he was quickly getting dizzy. He sat back down after a moment before shaking his head slightly and trying to stand up again. He quickly lost his balance and fell back into the chair. Midnight trotted over to his side and tilted her head.
You alright, big guy? You only had one of those drinks. I know you're not that much of a lightweight.
Midnight said with a grin.
Yeah, I don't know what's up. I just got really dizzy all of a sudden.
David said, trying to stand up again. He didn't get far before losing his balance and falling back down to the chair. Midnight moved quickly to grab him with her hooves and try to slow his fall.
David, okay, you're scaring me now. Are you alright?
Midnight asked, clearly concerned.
Yeah, I'm just really...
David trailed off, his head lolling back and forth.
David, your nose is bleeding!
Midnight nearly shouted. David brought a hand up to his nose before pulling it away to see his fingers covered in blood.
Huh?
David managed. Another moment passed, and David's hearing went with it. He could faintly hear someone calling his name, shouting it even, but it seemed so distant, almost muted. The room around him spun so fast he couldn't make out the details anymore. And after another moment, he found himself falling to the floor. The impact barely registered with him, and all he could make out were 2 sapphire eyes blinking back tears as his vision faded.
David! Somebody help!
The words rang dull in his ears, and with that, his world faded to darkness. Did you know that some restaurants don't give the waiters and waitresses the full tip? That sucks. Anyway, let's get on to our not knocked out donators. Top donators: Jessie Smith, Star630, BadassWaffle, Only One Thing, Ceru, Orion, and IronSky. Matchback109, JockeTF, Darkside, Rayden, Narwhals, Black Lunar, Pastel Skies, Austin Roland, Sword Brother and Orchard, Beacon Library, Rinside 9852, Wilkers, Twinkie, Rysel, Shadowman, Luigi D, Chancer Quest, Big Smoke Day 69, Bobcat GGF, Murder Princess, J1101, Calidus, Little Mighty, and many more awesome people. Thank you all so much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.